My sister, Myra, 40 female, has a daughter called Callie, 19. Callie's dad was not in her life when she was a child, his choice, and Myra was a single mom for Callie's entire childhood. There was a time when Callie was 8 that Myra got into a relationship with a man called Troy. They were together for 3 years and spent a lot of time together. Myra introduced Troy almost immediately, and they worked on all of them bonding and getting to know each other. Then after 3 years, Troy and Myra had been talking about marriage. Troy decided to ask Callie for her blessing. Callie said she didn't want her mom to marry him. At that point, he decided the relationship as a whole was not going to work, and he told Myra, and they broke up. Myra never forgave Callie for refusing to give her blessing, and she blames her for the downfall of the relationship with Troy. He didn't want to be stuck in a relationship where Callie would never want him around, and Myra was convinced that Callie had lied for many years and said Callie always said how much she loved Troy. I know that that was more wishful thinking on Myra's part, and Callie never said anything, either positive or negative. She was never asked and never offered it independently. Callie knows how Myra feels about her, and when she moved out 18 months ago, she did so by being fully independent of her mom, so she wouldn't have to be around her mom's resentment. I have spoken to my sister about this, and she denies resenting Callie. Myra cannot understand why Callie stays away. She's complained about this a lot and has asked me what she's supposed to do and why this crap must be so hard. And when I ask her what she means, she says parenting. I told her a few days ago that if she really wanted to know her next step, I told her it was therapy. I told her she badly needed it because she refused to see why her relationship with Callie was so distant today. Myra took offense to the suggestion and told me I shouldn't be treating her like she was crazy. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She's holding a grudge against her daughter for a relationship that didn't work out years ago. Blaming Callie for the breakup with Troy is absurd. She lost her daughter because she wanted to be with a man. I hope it was worth it. Callie moving out and keeping her distance is entirely understandable, given the situation. I don't know your sister enough to suggest therapy, but you're not in the wrong here. You're saying the girl was 11 when this dude asked her permission to marry her mom, and he walked away from a 3-year relationship because a kid probably on the cusp or amid raging puberty didn't give him her blessing? She was 11, as if she could really grasp what marriage really even meant. That is such a moronic reason to cut a relationship off. Either this guy was an absolute moron, or he was using that as an excuse to cut things off. What a loser. Yeah, dude folded because a girl didn't immediately jump for joy, and her mom held a grudge over that? Utterly ridiculous. Myra's blaming her daughter for how her relationship with Troy ended, not him, and she needs to reflect on how her resentment affected her and her daughter's relationship going forward. You don't have to be crazy to go to therapy. People tend to assume that therapy is just meant to help mental illness and disorders, but it can be instrumental in unpacking the past and letting the unspoken things be spoken. Whoa, wait a minute. A possible step-parent asks the kid's opinion and respects that opinion, and there's something wrong with him? Maybe he saw something that mom wasn't seeing. Maybe he actually respected the child's feelings. Being a good parent is completely selfless because it means listening to your child. If the kid's not ready for her parents to get remarried, then a good parent doesn't. I wouldn't marry someone if their kid wasn't ready for that. This guy did the right thing. My husband and I have been together for 6 years, and combined, we have 4 kids. My 2 stepkids are teens. My bio kids are a tween and an infant. Obviously, the youngest is our together baby. Now, since I gave birth, I've had a hard time eating. I can be super hungry, but more often than not, if I actually think about eating, I feel super nauseated or just grossed out and can't bring myself to eat actual meals. Stuff like crackers or finger foods are fine, but big meals just sicken me, the thought of eating it anyway. So since I had our daughter, I've eaten a total of maybe 5 hot meals. Yes, I have been in full contact with doctors who monitor me. We're trying to come up with a game plan. But anyway, given this, I hardly ever eat dinner. I usually cook it, plate it out for my husband and kids, and then leave my plate empty because I can't stomach it. But here's where I could be wrong. My husband knows I have a very hard time eating. Most days he tries force-feeding me, honestly. But yesterday I texted him, saying, "Making shepherd's pie tonight. I can't wait." I didn't say I would eat, so maybe that's where I went wrong. But on the other hand, I never text him a drooling emoji after saying I'm making something, so maybe he should have picked up on that. I don't know. I was starving anyway, and I was looking forward to having dinner. So I get done cooking and call everyone to the table, as I usually do, and the next thing I know, my mother-in-law's walking through the door, saying, "Hope I'm not late," and then sits down in my seat and grabs the extra plate meant for me. I was shell-shocked because, I just stood there. I didn't even know what to say. My mother-in-law just started digging into the dish, even before my kids were served, which made me angry. I also don't like saying out-of-pocket things in front of my kids either, so I just told them to dig in and started walking off. My stepson, Tween, whispered, "But Dad, I think Mom was going to eat tonight." And my husband said, "Babe, were you going to eat tonight? You can take my helping." And I just ignored him because, I was so mad that I couldn't say anything at that moment. I needed to cool off. With a smile, I told my stepson, "It's fine," and went to the other room. After mother-in-law left, my husband came out, asked me what was that about, and said, "You could have taken my meal, babe. It's not a big deal." I kind of snapped and said he never should have even invited his mom over to eat without asking me, without knowing if I was hungry or not. I brought up that I texted him a drooling emoji, indicating that I was hungry or excited for the meal. He just said, "Yeah, but you never eat. Now I feel like a darn loser. Thanks," and walked off. My stepson unfortunately heard this, and he came out with his plate and handed it to me and said, "I stole some more before it was eaten, so you could have some, Mom." Literally the sweetest darn kid ever, I swear. But now I feel like an idiot because I truly do never eat hot meals, so it was safe for my husband to assume that last night would be no different. And the fact that my stepson felt that he needed to do something about it as well. Am I the idiot? My husband is still sulking over this. Edit. I only made enough for the people who were supposed to be here, myself included. I always make myself a portion, even though I never know how I'm going to feel about eating. But every night, I only make enough for us. My husband knows this because there are never any leftovers. The portion my stepson brought me was maybe a half a scoop. As for mother-in-law, she always does stuff like that. In her eyes, adults come first, hence why she grabbed food before kids had even been served, because the adults worked all day. My husband doesn't hold the same view, but never speaks up to her when she does it. My mother-in-law and I don't get along, and never have, so she probably wouldn't have cared if she knew I wanted to eat. We don't speak usually. Also, her taking my seat meant there was nowhere else to sit. I had no other option than to leave the room because, despite my husband offering me his serving, he stayed seated and was dishing out his plate without looking at me while he was offering it. I know him well enough to know that means he was hungry and banking on eating regardless of having offered up his plate. Not the idiot. If a tween sees it, your husband should too. Your mother-in-law taking so much food when 3 children needed to eat from it is disrespectful. But your husband inviting someone over without telling or asking you while you're the one making dinner is the problem here. OP, tell your husband to take lessons from his son or get his stuff together. Your husband needs to step up. Your husband feels like a loser because he acted like one. Who invites their mother over to eat their wife's cooking without asking first? I mean, really? I get we men can be clueless, but wow, that brings clueless to a new level, like caveman clueless. I wish I could introduce your husband to my wife. By comparison, I look civilized. Right? Why would he even assume she was cooking enough for his mother? And for mother-in-law to just walk in, grab a plate, and go to town? That's pretty rude too. That woman has no couth whatsoever. She needs to get in her lane and stay there. How would she have felt if her mother-in-law had come in and pulled that crap on her postpartum butt? She would have gone thermonuclear. And now he's trying to manipulate you into thinking it's your fault? WTF. Yes, it is your fault, and I'm blaming you. LOL. He might have been coddled as a kid. How could anyone not comprehend that that scenario is 100% their fault? I hope your hubby had his come to Jesus moment, and it changed him for the better. When I was in high school, I was constantly bullied by Sophie. She made fun of my appearance, personality, hobbies, and grades. She also spread rumors about me and often told me that she wished I'd die and was pretty specific about this. In elementary school, a witchy, stuck-up brat named Sophie endlessly spoke about how she was rich. I do not have a positive connotation of the name Sophie, but I wouldn't just dislike someone because they share that name. My husband, 27, and I, 26, were discussing names for our child. We don't know if it's going to be a male or a female, but we started making a list of 10 male and 10 female names that we would consider. One of the female names my husband was very insistent on was Sophie, the name of his dead grandmother, who raised him since his parents were always busy with work. At once, I told him that I would not even consider it because the bully who tormented me throughout high school was also named Sophie. He got angry since he wanted to use the name of the person who meant so much to him, but I refused. He told me we should at least put it in the possible names, but I said not, since I didn't even want to consider it. He got really angry that I wasn't trying to take his opinion into account. Am I the idiot for refusing to consider naming our child Sophie? He's quick to say you won't consider his opinion for someone who won't even think for a second how traumatizing that name could be for you. Is he seriously not realizing the hypocrisy of that comment? Not the idiot. You have every right to shoot down any name you wish, and so does he. Yeah, ask him the name of somebody he hates, then insist you name your daughter that. Then say, but you're not taking my opinion. OMG, tell him to get over himself. I know it's upsetting for him, but for all the butterflies calling his daughter that would give him, it'll give you literally the opposite feeling, and he needs to respect that. Did beloved Granny have a middle name you could use as baby's first name or middle name? Names need approval from both parents. Good luck, and I hope you have a boy, so that this name isn't even a relevant option for your husband anymore. My wife gave birth about 1 year ago, and she changed. She was angry all the time, suspicious, and paranoid of everyone. I think her mother filled her head against me. She would constantly accuse me of cheating, and she and mother-in-law would talk badly about me on the phone when I wasn't home. One day she said she was leaving me, and her mother was packing her stuff. She left with our daughter to go to her mother's house. Later that night, she called me and told me that she kissed a guy and asked me how it felt to be cheated on. She was accusing me again of being a cheater and how I betrayed her. I finally had enough and told her not to come back. Then she started blowing up my phone, and I refused to answer or take her calls. She did show up at our house after 2 days and asked me for help with her mental state. I took her to the hospital, and she was diagnosed with PPD and was put on medication. She slowly started returning to her normal self. I think she's healed and can manage by herself from now on, so it was the right time for me to divorce her. So I served her divorce papers a few days ago. She's not happy about it and is begging me not to divorce her. She's blaming it on the PPD, and I understand that her head was messed up, but I don't tolerate cheating. So I'm proceeding with the divorce. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. PPD is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. I fully understand the hormonal paranoia and such. I was on a hormonal medication for a few months, and it made me insanely paranoid that my partner was cheating on me. but acting on it is a completely different thing. I also had paranoia from PPD. It's awful. My husband couldn't do anything right. He could barely go to work without me freaking out. It's still not an excuse. When my partner went to work, I was beside myself. I was 1,000,000% convinced there was another love interest there, and I spent the entire day crying and making up all these scenarios in my head. And the moment my partner walked through the door, I'd fight with him over this imaginary partner. I am not proud of the person I was on the meds. The symptoms you're describing, paranoia and delusions, do not fit with postpartum depression. They sound more like postpartum psychosis. This is very different and very serious. It can cause paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations. OP, are you sure your interpretation of the diagnosis is correct? It's hard to judge this if nobody knows what's going on. It's a messy situation, but I hope you don't end the marriage over a kiss that may or may not have happened while your wife was mentally ill from a child that you created with her. Everyone is insane here. This woman was having a severe mental health crisis, and he did absolutely nothing to get her help, and is now crying like a little witch over her kissing someone? What a complete and absolute idiot. OP, at least be honest. You don't want to be married to her anymore. But over a kiss, when this person was suffering a horrific episode, is just ridiculous. Even though we're no longer together, my ex, Alex, and I still hang out and are still in the same friend group. Alex is transgender, male to female. She came out to us after we had broken up, but she likes to keep it on the down low with new people until she's comfortable with them. One of our friends had a party with all of our friends a while back, and Alex and I were both there with our new significant others. During the party, we talked about living with our significant others. It was just about silly things and each other's quirks, all in good fun. One friend brought up how her girlfriend always steals his hoodies. I brought up how I now also had to deal with my girlfriend borrowing my clothes all the time, and I never had that problem before since it was my first time living with a woman. Alex's girlfriend overheard and laughed and said, "Well, you mean besides Alex?" I maybe awkwardly laughed and said, like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's true." I think maybe it made Alex's girlfriend suspicious, since she continued and was like, "How did you forget?" Alex said you guys dated for years and were very serious. At that point, Alex made an excuse to leave. Things were awkward as they left, since Alex's girlfriend knew something was up. Alex later told me she wasn't ready yet to tell her new girlfriend about her being trans, and that I was such an idiot for outing her by basically forcing her to have the conversation before she was ready and ruining her relationship. I didn't mean to, though. I was bringing up something and agreeing with something someone else said about something similar to my own experience with my new girlfriend. Things were awkward with the friend group because Alex started being passively hostile to me, like she would straight up pretend I'm not there if we're in the same place with friends. So now our friends have started not inviting her since they say she's made things awkward. So Alex is saying that I'm purposely turning our friends against her. I wasn't trying to do that either, but I honestly don't want to convince them to invite her again because I don't want to be around her anymore. Not the idiot. How are you in a whole relationship without telling your partner about this? That's so crazy. You experienced dating Alex entirely as a man when dating. You can't and shouldn't be required to alter your memories retroactively. Advice: don't be friends with exes. You didn't out her. Someone else did. You didn't do anything wrong. You sure as heck didn't do anything on purpose. I believe she has no business dating anyone for a significant amount of time without being upfront with them about it. People have a right to make an informed decision about who they're dating. If you're at the point of calling her your girlfriend, she should know the truth going in. Oh, dear Alex, you're your own worst enemy.